Hey, hey, hey! Jeremobie in the house! What a crowd tonight! Hey, how you all doing? Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. We got a crowded house here today, just for me. For me! This is terrific. Oh, look at all those bright young faces out there. Everyone looks so ecstatic and happy and great. Nah, let me tell you, nothing beats getting a round of applause from a bunch of sexual predators.
Okay, I can't be the only one feeling the fatigue here. I know I'll probably sound like some cynical hipster, but I mean it when I say that too many mainstream movies have sort of lost their escapism. I guess blockbusters and big budget features don't have to be challenging or moving so long as they're technically well made and owned by Disney. Now look, I'm not saying we should resort back to the early days when Hollywood directors were coked out of their minds and given full creative control, but it is weird to pair the maturity and sophistication of Spielberg's Jaws with, well, noise.
The world needs you. It doesn't need you.
Mainstream film culture is way more team-based than ever before and builds itself on hype and marketing instead of focusing on the film itself. DC versus Marvel, Disney versus Universal. It's all just corporate bullshit. So what do people do instead? They watch hours of VR chat.
Okay, I think you just raise my dick up sixfold. Thank you, Airbender.
Stephen King's It made an obscene amount of money both domestically and internationally and pretty much cemented that there's a huge demographic out there for R-rated horror. Even better is that it's directed by that guy who made the Academy Award-winning Mama and starring a Skarsgård sibling who wishes he was scary.
Skarsgård was great as Pennywise, and he's got big shoes to fill, let's face it, because people...
Wonder Woman was getting all this buzz for being this big game changer for the superhero genre, although I don't think Teen Vogue and I were watching the same movie.
They're everything you say, but so much more.
And Blade Runner 2049 seems to be getting universal praise, the sequel everybody wanted and more.
I think it's okay. I mean, it's well made, but I can't be the only asshole who thought it had glaring problems narratively, especially if you love reading young adult fiction.
That is everything. Why you gotta tease your boy like that?
I saw the Rise of the Dawn of the War of the Planet of the Apes movie, and that was a good 2.5 hour nap well spent.
Oh, and Star Wars was fine. I liked the scene where the alien was breastfeeding Luke Skywalker.
Man, I tried my hardest to avoid trailers and ads for Star Wars and plenty of other movies, but there's no getting around the fact that we're just so tuned into every single movie before it even comes out, to the extent that you don't even need to see the movie.
The surprise, the magic, the mystery, and the wonder is dying. Everything needs press coverage. Everything has to be tied to an expanded universe. Everything has to be remade for a new generation. Everything has to pander to your values and beliefs instead of questioning or challenging your values and beliefs. Ladies and gentlemen, the pleasure of escaping from reality in a visual medium is only getting harder.
That's really good.
God, this is so fucking embarrassing.
And let me tell you, 2017 had some real blunders, some of which are just not even worth the effort. But we're not here to talk about the worst of the year. We're here to spotlight some of the best. So let me grab my list.
Good Time, basically My Panic Attack directed by the Safdie brothers. Nothing quite captures the rush and neon exploitation of One Day in Queens like this movie does. There isn't a whole lot of time devoted to everyone in the movie, yet all the characters leave a long-lasting impression in the midst of the jerky editing and fast pace. The world itself is harsh and unapologetic, to the point that people have sort of accepted it. Robert Pattinson is seriously good here, as is the whole cast, and I like how the film gets down to the nitty-gritty without holding back. Trainspotting 2. This one is a nostalgia trip in all the right ways. The first Trainspotting is primarily focused on addiction and how the individual characters handle their addictions, and its sequel is ultimately about how these same characters deal with their regret. Some reminisce in the past when they remember the last moments of happiness before their mistakes. Some want to get out of the world so they don't have to think about it any longer. And some want to make things better due to their guilt and will go at any length to do so. It's executed brilliantly with the stylish choices made by returning director Danny Boyle, who stays true to the predecessor while still expanding on ideas proposed 20 years ago.
Choose your future, Veronica. Choose life.
The Lost City of Z. This felt like a director's epic passion project from the 70s that finally seeped under the rug. I don't know if I'd go so far to say that this was the most entertaining or emotional film from last year, but it was definitely enriching. The mood and the imagery is dipped in a vintage color palette that really plays up the human sense of discovery and ambition. Not only are the visuals and score incredible, but it's a film that takes you back to your spiritual roots, the nature of time, and the mysteries of the unknown. Captain Underpants. No, I'm not wearing nostalgia goggles, the movie is just that good. What started out as a small doodle by someone in school, turned into full book franchise spanning decades, now turned feature film, Captain Underpants still retains the same basic principle, the value in making people laugh. We all have that deep-seated love for potty humor, and the movie delivers on that and more, with so many sight gags and insanely witty dialogue from the cast of characters. It also blends Tex Avery energy with so many styles of animation, and yes, they even incorporate Flip-O-Rama. And of all the villains to go with, Professor Poopy Pants was a wise call. The Florida Project. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the last minute and a half of this movie, but it in no way hurts the heart-wrenching and gorgeous portrait of life at a budget hotel near Epcot Disney. Florida Americana is captured episodically through a rowdy young girl, a trashy drug-addicted mother, and a struggling hotel manager, who are all affected by the noise and neglect of the reality they live in. Like Sean Baker's last film, Tangerine, everything about the film feels grounded and honest, and to put it bluntly, it is a nuanced roller coaster that'll stick around in cinema studies.
I am a professional bodyguard and an international counterterrorism expert. I work around the world for espionage agencies.
But, Sean, you don't.
But I do.
But, Sean, we checked, and you don't.
But I do.
I, Tonya, a film boasting my favorite Margot Robbie performance to date, and I've liked her in everything I've seen so far. A lot of the humor and likability comes from the kinetic editing, cutting back and forth between silhouettes leading up to this big news story, and how detached and depraved these people were. It illustrates the bare concept of wanting to be the best in a harsh and unforgiving way. Even though we never get the real truth about the Tonya story, we get a half-truth that performed above expectations. Brigsby Bear.
It's my fondest hope that people will go, because the best way to see it is completely, cold, without any preconceived notions.
It's dope as shit. Get out. Jordan Peele wowed me with his directorial debut, and I'm glad it's reached such a wide audience. It's almost like a Twilight Zone episode we never got. With a very calculated screenplay from start to finish, it's a deliriously entertaining ride through comedy, horror, action, and social commentary, and it knows exactly how to blend the four without detracting from any. It gets to the core of a society that's not on your side, much like Body Snatchers or Rosemary's Baby. It's a punch in the gut, though, that the Academy won't acknowledge the film's genre for what it actually is, a damn good horror movie. Given. Of the few documentaries I caught last year, Given was one of those overlooked masterpieces from the point of view of a young boy and his surfer parents. Not only is it one of the most stunning films I've seen all year, but it really pushes you to open your mind. The world is your back garden. Explore your surroundings like the 6-year-old deep in your essence. It's therapy for the soul and candy for the eyes. Baby Driver. Talk about a soundtrack that literally drives the movie. Edgar Wright's visual stylism is unparalleled among active filmmakers, engaging and challenging in ways that other directors just aren't up to par. Although not as funny as some of his other films, the ensemble cast has a lot of great lines and leaves a huge impression. The plot may be mindless fun, but the execution is far from it. A love letter to the classic heist and car chase movies that came before. Super Dark Times. I wish more people were talking about this movie. Not since the film Mean Creek have I seen young teenagers played so convincingly. The loss of innocence in the face of youthful indiscretion is taken to its darkest level, and after a terrible accident, it's a free-for-all for everyone to make sense of it. I especially loved a lot of the haunting images in this movie, some that actually made me jump they were so good. It's gorgeously framed, gorgeously directed, and gorgeously dark. A Ghost Story. The movie everybody says is really boring I really loved. I mean, if you love watching films about sadness, regret, loss, grief, decay, and eating a pie for 10 minutes, then this is the movie for you. It does contain a lot of the things I hate about someone's first college film, yet it's overcast with so much subtlety and silence that it becomes beautifully hypnotic. Director David Lowery manages to do what Terrence Malick has struggled to do for most of his career, namely to encapsulate the entirety of a feeling through images and somber music alone. It really stuck with me by the end. And then I overdosed on Zoloft, 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. This movie is particularly weighed down on the shoulders of its cast. The real takeaways are Frances McDormand and Sam Rockwell, who give some of the best performances of their careers. The characters are brutally awful at times, with some simply serving as bystanders to everyone's self-destruction. But ultimately, the characters we're introduced to change by the close of the film, and the film is paced rather well. It's definitely a melancholic story and a real roller coaster of emotions, but I love the amount of dark humor snuck in too. Split. Not since Unbreakable have I been this impressed and immersed with an M. Night Shyamalan film. The guy is an auteur who makes films, whether good or bad, are creatively his own, and Split doesn't disappoint. I've seen it at least 3 times now, and still I'm amazed by how pre-planned everything is, from shot 1 to the ending line. Just about everything that is set up actually pays off, whether it be a character's past experience or the image of a wild animal. Even when some of the dialogue gets hokey, the actors do a terrific job of selling it, especially James McAvoy, who single-handedly makes every personality stand out with care, and I really do think he was wrongfully snubbed for the Best Actor category. All I can say is that I eagerly await M. Night's next film in 2019. (1922), by far and away the best Stephen King adaptation of last year. Coming off the heels of The Mist, Thomas Jane completely disappears into the role of Farmer Wilfred, capturing an unhinged man filled with rage and regret. As the film progressively follows his story, it becomes more character study than classical Stephen King chiller. For a Netflix film no less, the technical nods are deserved. I was really taken aback by the film's gorgeous setting and time period brought to life, while also not shying away from the darker and colder secrets in the cracks. It's a slow burn of a film, but expertly crafted and has one of the most brutal murder scenes ever. The Meyerositz Stories. I hope I'm saying that right. I sort of went into this one not knowing much about it and left it kind of the same. The film is an organic, oddly staged comedy that compiles stories, recent and chosen, to understand a family whose members feel alone and downtrodden in different ways. They're assholes, and misguided, and careless, and resentful, and the characters constantly put words into each other's mouths without thinking. Thankfully, the writing is careful not to analyze their behavior as positive characteristics, but rather the only way to unify their closest emotions. It's a pretty funny film about a peculiar group of people. Brawl and Cellblock 99, the movie that'll teach you to never fuck with Vince Vaughn. S. Craig Zahler is a director to watch out for. His previous film Bone Tomahawk was a solid ode to the cannibal movies of the 70s, and Cellblock 99 is basically a gory grindhouse prison thriller from 1974. Even when the violence is overly cartoonish and brutal, it says a lot about the craving audiences have for old-school genre type. It feels so much like an exploitation film of its time, unlike most Rodriguez or Tarantino films that feel more like movies they wanted to see at that time. And I have to commend it for having balls. Vince Vaughn is a beast, Don Johnson is eating cigars, and be prepared for a lot of curb stomping.
Okay, we don't want any trouble. My computer was stolen, and this says that it's in there. I just want it back. There's no questions. So, can you get it?
I can get these nuts.
You can get these nuts?
All right, tough guy. You had your chance.
Oh, jeez. Oh my God. Are you okay?
And I'll end with I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, a film that maneuvers through a day's worth of human absurdity, rudeness, and stupidity, and then jumping right into vigilantism. Macon Blair's story of a very relatable woman who doesn't deserve any of the bullshit in her life strikes a chord. It stylistically shares some of the swirling chaos and violence you'd see in a Jeremy Saulnier film, but injects humor and warmth that makes this a tonally different animal than Blue Ruin or Green Room. Reuniting after working together on Over the Garden Wall, both Melanie Lynskey and Elijah Wood are incredible as the pair of awkward friends on a quest for natural justice. And the film still makes a good argument that some of the decisions they make when pinned in a seedy underbelly makes for terrible mistakes. I can't recommend this one enough.
Well, that is a wrap on 2017. I hope you enjoyed my selections. Did I miss any? Who cares? Go make your own list. And Well, if I were you, I'd just skip out on the Oscars. It's not worth it. Yeah, so Happy New Year and Oprah 2020. I can't fucking think straight.